Hello young women, welcome to your first camp tutorial. I guess if you're at home and watching this tutorial it might be your second, but for all of those girls at camp, this is your first painting tutorial and we are excited to get going. I'm going to show you everything you need to have prepped in front of you. So for your at-home girls, you're going to want something to protect whatever table surface you're working on. I just have a plain old garbage bag. You can put that down. You're going to need your paints. For the girls at camp, your paints will be on a plate. For the girls at home, they're in these cute little tubs. You need a cup of water, your paintbrush, a couple layers thick of paper towel, just 2 or 3 of those, and then you need your 2 sheets of paper. For the girls at home, instead of having this grayish colored one, you might have a smaller piece of paper, and then you'll have a slightly bigger one. We need to set the bigger, nicer sheet of paper to the side. For the girls at camp, this gray one is what we're going to be practicing and learning on. For the girls at home, this is going to be your smaller. So just grab those 2 pieces of paper and put those in front of you. And then you need to have your paints, whichever one it is for you, put that up above you or to the side, whatever works best for you. For the girls at home, opening these can be a little bit tricky. So I would move your paper out of the way while you're opening just in case. You push down on the bottom tab and lift up on that top one and just do it carefully because you don't want it to spill. So go ahead and get those opened up. This middle one is empty, so I guess you technically don't have to open that one. But you just need all these 5 colors. Oh, I'm not very graceful doing this. So afraid I'm gonna spill. Okay, we got that open. Grab your gray sheet of paper and your paintbrush. Now, when you are watercoloring, you can choose to hold your paintbrush however you want. As you can tell, it's a really long paintbrush. Most of the time, I recommend you just hold it like you do a pencil because that's what's going to be most comfortable for you. You can hold up really close and tight. Sometimes I'll hold a little further back. Whichever works for you is fine. Then if you feel the brush, you can tell on some of yours, it's a little stiff and stuck together. So just kind of roll the brush in your fingers, and if there's any loose bristles, just pull those out and leave them on the side. Okay, then you want to dip it in the water. We're going to try and roll it into a point. So just roll it in between your fingers to get it to come to a point, which is great. And the first thing that we're going to practice, I'm going to dry that off. The first thing we're going to practice is just doing lines. So before you do anything else, we're going to practice pressure on the paper towel. So get your brush wet. And then there's different kinds of pressure that you can do with this brush. You can do super light where you're barely touching. You can push a little harder, medium, or you can push super hard where it flattens out your brush. We're going to be using all of those pressures today. So to practice, we're going to use our dark green. So just dip the tip of your brush. Let's see if you can see that. Probably not. It's just barely on the tip. And then once you've got paint with watercolor, you want to go back into the water and then lightly touch the paper towel to get the excess water off. And we're going to try and make as thin of a line as we possibly can. We're just going to do a whole bunch of little lines across the top of the paper. So just do a few practice lines, trying to touch it as lightly as you can. See if you can make it really thin. If yours comes out kind of thick like that, just try to touch it even lighter. And maybe you have too much paint. Maybe you need to wipe a little of your paint on the paper towel, but you're trying to do it as super duper thin as you can, which takes touching the paper barely. And you'll notice as you have less paint on your brush, it gets easier. Okay, so stop after you've done 5 or 6 of those. Many of you have probably done more than that. That's okay, but just stop. Next, we're going to try doing medium pressure. If you're completely out of paint, you can get some more, but I still feel like I have enough. I'm just going to get a little bit of water. Then we want to do a medium line, which is about like this one that I sampled right here. So you'll just, instead of pushing all the way down, just push a little bit harder. And one thing you'll notice as I'm holding my paintbrush, my pinky, I kind of have it curled underneath me. Hopefully you can see that. I kind of curl it like that, and I set it down on the paper. And that just kind of steadies my hand, and it makes it a little bit easier to do lines. So back to the medium lines, you just want to push down and see if you can make a medium line. And just practice as many times as you need for that. I'm going to get a little more paint to do a thick line. So I've got my paint again, dip in the water, tap on the paper towel. For a fat line, you need to push all the way down. So you're gonna go until your brush looks flat. See how fat that gets? It's huge. And this is what we're gonna be using a lot for leaves and for petals. So we're gonna need to be really comfortable doing that one. And then the last line that I want you to practice is we're gonna be going from thin to fat and back to thin. But this time we're gonna do it sideways. So underneath these ones, we're gonna go sideways. So you'll start by going super light, then push down for a little while, then lift lightly back up. And so mine had a lot of water, so it kind of puddled. That's okay. When it comes to watercolor, if you're a perfectionist, if you're someone who likes things to be just right, just perfect, you're gonna have to take a deep breath and let that go. Because one of the fun things about watercolor is that it isn't perfect. The water kind of just lets things flow and blend together, and I promise that you'll find something beautiful at the end of your painting. So if you aren't super happy with it at the beginning, even maybe in the middle, give your painting all the way to the end, and then you'll be able to find some part of your painting, hopefully your whole painting, but at least some part of your painting that you think looks really beautiful. And if anything, this is just something that can get you going so that you can keep practicing and learning how to do this at home, because these are all things you can buy at home. So let's do one more of those, and then we're gonna move on to learning shapes. So start with a super light, push down, lift up. And so it sort of creates a nice, almost like a flat banana or something like that. Rinse your brush off, dry it on your paper towel. Okay, now we are going to be practicing the petal shape, which is actually the same as the leaf shape. We're gonna all be doing a whole bunch of shapes that are the same, but just in different colors. So for this one, once it's rinsed off, go to your dark pink. And as you can see, that's how much is on my tip, but then we're going in the water. So some of that's gonna wash off, then catch that drip on your paper towel. So that's how much I have left on the tip. For this one, you're going to be doing an arch, but we're gonna be doing the pressure like we did here. So it's gonna be, I like to hold it kind of sideways. So you go light, push down while you're going up, and then go soft. So I pushed a little too hard down here. You probably did too, that's okay. So try it again, light, push down, lift up. The other thing that can be happening, you might have too much water. So just tap it on your paper towel if you feel like that's it. So let's do another one right here. Light, push down, and lift up. Wonderful. Now we're gonna do the other half of the petal on this one. So you do the same thing, but underneath a little smile to connect it into like a leaf shape. So you do light, push down, and then connect back together. And then you just use your brush to fill in that middle. Leave it like that. It's not all even, that's okay. Let's do another leaf all together. This is actually the blossom petal. It'll be one of them. Our petals are gonna have 4 of these, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So we're gonna try and make this one a little bit smaller. So light, push down, lift up, and then same here. So just try and make a little lemon, football, whatever shape you identify with. That's what we're trying to do, just a little leaf. Let's do it again. Light, push down, lift up, and then same on the bottom, push down, lift up, and fill it in. Okay, so now we're gonna turn that into a flower. How we do that, kind of imagine you have a little box right here on your paper. That's where we're gonna be doing our petal over there on the side. Get that little bit on the corner. I need a little more. And if you're working off the plate, same thing. You don't need a lot of paint for this. So get a little tiny bit on the tip, dip it in the water, catch those drips. And we're gonna do 4 petals. So we're gonna do 2 across, almost like an X, and 2 one on top of the other. So you need to give yourself room. Let's actually start with the top one so that you don't accidentally run out of space. So you do a petal on the top, remember that pressure, light, push down, and lift up again. Then let's do the bottom one, which connects in the middle. Okay, then if you're feeling a little dry or something, you can get a little more water here, just the tip. Then do one of the side ones. Okay, you might need a little more water. See, that one doesn't have very much color, so I think I need to get a little bit more paint, a little more water, and come back and just trace over that one again. Good. And it's okay if you have little puddles of water. That actually kind of helps your flower know where to keep all the color. It'll sort of trap it inside of where your wet flower is. So the next thing that we need to do is we're gonna now add some dimension to these flowers. So we're gonna add some color in the middle. So go to your light pink. Well, first rinse off all that dark pink and dry your brush off. Then go to the light pink, get some on the tip, dip it in the water, and then catch the drips on the paper towel. And we're gonna be creating a long X, a long cross. So you just go down the middle and you're gonna notice it's gonna start running. That's good, that's what we want it to do. From tip to tip, do it all the way. If yours for any reason isn't sort of blending into the dark pink, then it means you need a little bit more water. If yours is blending a whole bunch and it feels like you have more water, it just means you need to dry your brush off a little bit more. So now we're gonna make a whole new flower. So rinse that off again, go back to your dark pink. I'm gonna work a little bit quickly, but you can pause this video if you need a little more time to do yours. So we're gonna do the top flower. And I'm purposely making these flowers a little bit bigger than what we're going to be doing on the actual painting, just because it's easier for practice. So we're going to try doing these smaller in just a minute. So then dip in, after you've rinsed off, get some of that light pink, some water, and do a nice beautiful cross. And see how much more I have on this one, and yet it'll still work, I promise. So this one, it's not spreading quite as much as it did, so I'll rinse all that paint off so I just have water. And then I'll come and add a little bit of water on top and see how that makes that spread. It's beautiful. And I actually like it a lot better with the lighter pink. So you can decide what your preference is. If you like it better like that, just add extra paint. You can come back over and add more pink. The next layer for the flowers is you're adding a little tiny cross in the middle with this khaki kind of light brown color. So get a little bit on your tip. This time you don't need to add any water to it. If we feel like it needs it after, we'll add some after. But just do a little cross in the middle. And mine actually is too dark. I am gonna need some water. So let's add some water on top of that because it didn't blend at all. There we go. I kind of want it to blend like that. So let's get a little more for this flower next to it. We're gonna do both of them. I'm gonna dip it in the water this time. And then do a little X in the middle. Not all the way like we did with the light pink, just in the middle. And it's gonna blend. It might blend all the way to the tip of the flower like mine did. That's okay, just let it go. So for right now, we're gonna stop. There's more we're gonna do to this flower, but if we were to do it right now, it would all blend and mush together. So it needs a little time to dry before we can do anything else. We're gonna move to a leaf. And a leaf is exactly like this petal, but we're gonna be using different colors. So dip into your light green. And just like with all the others, once you get it on the tip there, you need to go into your water and then catch the extra on the paper towel. And then you just do the same pressure. Light, push down, lift up. Light, push down, lift up. And then if there's any space in the middle, fill it in. Okay, so let's do another one just really fast to practice that. Wonderful. Okay. Once you have that done, to add some dimension to your leaves, we add dark green on top of it. So you don't need as much dark green as you needed the light green. Again, just get a little on the tip, which I know is super hard for you to see, but again, it's just barely there on the tip. This one you definitely got to dip in the water and onto your paper towel. Then you go to the bottom of your leaf and you kind of just brush up one side and then the other side. And if it's just staying in those shapes and it's not really blending in, like that means that I don't have enough water. So I'll come dip it back in the water and then come back and brush on top of that. There we go. Because we kind of want it to blend all the way into the leaf. If it leaves a little bit of dark streaks, that's fine. That actually adds some nice, beautiful texture to it. So then come back, get a little more on the tip, dip it in the water. If you need to, tap it on the paper towel and then do the same thing. And see how dark this one is? That means I definitely need more water. So I'm going to rinse off some of my paint and get just some water for it. There you go, to help it push to the end of the leaf. So that's how we use leaves. You can kind of see the light coming through, but you can also see the dark. If you like having it super dark, how some leaves have lines, you can come back and add some lines or whatever it is that you want to do. But we can work on that at the end. So now we'll come back to the flowers, and the very last steps that you do for the flowers is you add a little bit of dark green to the middle. So get a little dark green on the tip. This time don't add any water to it, and just add a dot right there in the middle. Right there in the middle. Let it bleed out, that's okay. At the very, very end of your painting, when it's all done, the flower would have to be pretty much dry. You can add a little light pink dot right in the middle and it'll kind of make it pop. But we can't do that right now because it's drying and we really need to move on to our flower composition. So this is your practice. If you feel like you need a little more practice on how to do these shapes, pause the video right now, take a little bit of time, practice your lines, practice all your leaves and petals until you feel confident. But for those of you who are ready to move on, we're going to do it. So the first thing that we're going to start is right in the middle of the painting, we're going to put one of our flowers. We're not going to create very many, but when you do compositions of flowers, it's best to do odd numbers. So if you're going to do flowers, we're probably going to do about 5. We'll do 3 that are flowers and a couple of little buds. And the buds are really just a leaf shape, a small leaf shape that's pink. And I'll walk you through that as we get to that. So let's start. If you are feeling brave, you're welcome to move along faster than me. You also don't have to make your flower bouquet look like mine. If you have a different idea or you want to do something else, go for it. But these are the flower shapes that we do and the leaf shapes, and so you can make it however you want. For those who want to follow along, come to the middle of the paper. We got paint on the tip. I've dipped it in the water and did, whoops, let's do that again. Okay. Then we'll start right there in the middle, and I'm doing a little bit smaller than I did before. Okay. Create that first petal shape, and then the second one down underneath. And I'm feeling like I'm going to need a little bit more color for those other leaves, so I'm going to come back, just get a tiny bit more on my brush to do the side ones. And yeah, if it ever feels like it's not quite dark enough to you, that's fine. But for this dark pink color, we actually want it to be not super dark, but we don't want it to be like a see-through light, because then there won't be any contrast when we add the other. So now let's add another flower. This one can go wherever we want. I'm going to add mine up here. And you do not want your flowers to run into each other. So if they run into each other, then all of the watercolor will sort of blend. So I kind of will bend my petals a little bit so that they don't run into each other. If yours are super close, you can just draw 3 of the petals. If the 4th one you know will run into the other one, then you can just draw 3 of them. But I think I can fit in 4 just fine. And see how that one's a little bit lighter than all the others? I'm going to go back with a little bit of paint and add some. Okay. Then let's add another one. We're going to add it right up here. Dip in, then in your water, on your paper towel. This one I'm going to start and do the bottom one so that I know I don't run into the other flowers. I got a little too much water on this one, so I need to tap it on my paper towel again. Sort of creating a puddle. Like I said, if I am moving too fast for you, just pause the video, or if you're at camp and in person watching this, just raise your hand and let the leaders know that you need a little bit more time. So then once you have those done, we're going to come back and add the color into those. So rinse off all that dark pink. Let's go into that light pink. Whoa, I got way too much on my paintbrush, so I'm just going to rinse it off entirely and start again. That's a little bit better. Dip it in the water. And I have, can you see here I have a little hair that's kind of coming out? Just pull it out with your finger and wipe your finger off. All right. So at this point, you remember what to do next? So we add the little X right there in the middle. And if it doesn't have enough water, we'll come back. We're going to do all 3 of them. And then if it needs more water, we'll add more water. So this one, it looks like I need some more of that light pink. So we're going to rinse that off. And this one looks like it needs a little more water. So before I add more paint, I'm just going to add a little more water to this one. Same to this one to help it spread. And then this one looks like it needs more of the light pink. It didn't really show up. So I'm going to come back, add a little bit more of that. There we go. Okay. Rinse that off really good. We're going to add a couple of buds. So I'm going to do 1 bud down here, which is just 1 petal. That's it. And then a little bud right here. All right. Okay. And same with the petals, with the buds I mean. With those ones, you can still add the light pink. This time you just add it off to the side. Just off to the right, just on one side. Okay, do you remember what color comes next? So we've done the dark pink, the light pink, and yes, we move on to the khaki light brown and do a small X there in the middle. Awesome. And I always seem to run out of paint for this last one, so you might need to go back to get more for that. When it comes to the buds, you can add a little bit of brown. You don't have to, but if you do, just add it down there at the bottom. That's all that really needs it. Okay. And then we're just going to leave those be and move on to our leaves and our stems. So the stems is where you need to remember about the really light touching of the canvas. So get a little tiny bit of the light green on your paintbrush after you've rinsed off all that pink, but get a little bit of light green on the tip, dip it in the water, then touch your paper towel, and now you're going to do super light, thin lines, if you can. You're gonna do it as thin as you can. You don't even have to touch the petal, kind of do it a little away from the petal, and it doesn't need to be a super straight line. It can be kind of like a little bit of an arch. See how mine bends a little bit? That's a little bit more natural looking. So for these ones that connect, you just do a little line. Don't touch the flowers if you can. And then you just imagine where it goes behind the flower, and that's where you come out on the other side. And then you can just kind of bend and cross those leaves. Then if you need a little bit more paint, come back and do this one. Start up here, same thing, really light touch. Try not to go into the other flower. Then you just come down, imagine where it would come out, and there. And then you need to do the same thing for your buds, because they would be growing from a stem as well. Get a little more paint, dip it in the water, and imagine where this bud would come. Draw a little line for that. A little more paint, a little more water for this bud. And I'm going to have that one come behind this flower too. And that flower, it's just going behind all the flowers. Now it kind of blends into that one. So this is the starting point. This is the point where some girls will get frustrated, or young women, I'm sorry, you are not girls anymore. And they will start to get frustrated because they don't necessarily like how their painting's looking. But this is just the halfway point. Give yourself some time. There's more to come that's going to make it look even more real and beautiful. So this is just a starting point. Come back to your light green. We're going to be doing leaves. So I like to do leaves down here at the bottom to start. And it's just the same as the petal shape, remember? Just kind of pick wherever you think a leaf would look good. And the leaves can be a little bit more narrow. You can make them bigger, whatever you think looks beautiful. Just kind of add them here and there. They can even cover up, like right here, how you might be afraid. Nope, you can totally cover those lines. If you think a leaf would look really pretty right there, add it. Just add it right on top of those lines. It's also okay if you feel like there needs to be some color. You can just kind of add a leaf sort of floating. There's no rules. It doesn't have to be connected to a stem. It can just sort of be floating over here to look good. I'm actually going to make one float over here too, just because I think it would look pretty having a leaf over there. And our minds will sort of fill in the blank, and people will just assume, oh, there's probably a stem hiding in there somewhere that's making those connect. So then I think it needs one more leaf before we start adding in the dark green. I'm going to add a leaf right here by this blossom. Now for blossoms, not blossoms, sorry, for the buds, they usually have a little bit of green underneath them. So take your light green and kind of create a V. Almost like it has a shirt collar or something like that on underneath it. And then we'll add a little bit dark green to make that look even better. Now rinse your brush off really good in the water, dry it on there, and come into the dark green. Get some just on the tip, and then we're going to be adding the dark color. You don't have to add this dark color to every single leaf. That's up to you. Or you can come back and add light green leaves later. Or you can add the dark green to everything. This is where you can sort of make up the rules. Or you can copy mine. So I'm going to go to this one, run up the side. See how much water I have? How it's just blending like that? If yours isn't blending, add more water. If you feel like you have too much water, tap it on your paper towel. And you probably have enough, if you've got enough water, to do more than one leaf at a time. So do as many as you can until they don't really seem like they're blending. And then go back and get more paint or more water, whatever it is that you're going to need. Okay, I'm going to get more paint now. So that one right there, that I feel like I have too much paint. So I'm going to just rinse off and then use some water to spread that around. And remember, you don't have to go all the way to the tip. If you just want to add some dark there on the corners, that's beautiful. You can do that. All right. You also want to add some dark green to our stems. Before we do the stems though, let's actually do this dark green that's under our buds. So you want to get a little bit of dark green on your tip. You can put it in the water if you think you need it. I had enough water on my brush, so I didn't. So if you can see, I just sort of did it right on top of that little shirt collar V we did of the light green, and then I do one little tiny bit on the bottom of the pink. And that sort of just makes it feel like it's all being hugged and held in place right there. Then get a little bit more dark green on the tip of your brush. Come back and kind of go over your light green stems. Now the stems that are in the back, those are going to be your darkest stems. So I recommend that you do the ones that are behind first, and then come and do the ones that are in front last. Just because that's how it would naturally go with light and shadow. But just kind of trace all of them. If you need to get more paint, you can get more paint. Okay. And if you'll notice on my flower, my green sort of blended into the pink. It's okay. If that bothers you, once your flower is dry, you can come back and add some pink on top of that to hide that. But in a watercolor, you kind of just let that happen. If that's super stressful for you, yes, you can fix it later. So at this point, we need to add the dark inside of the flower now that our flowers have had a little bit of a chance to dry. So go back to the dark green, and if you remember, don't put any water on it, and then just do the one dot in the middle, and another dot in all of those. And at this point, ladies, this is done. So you can be done with it at this point. If you're not happy with it and you want to go and do little touch-ups, you can do that. You can make it all your own. If you feel like your leaves are too dark and you want to add some light green leaves, you could come and, let's see, where could we add one? We could add one right here at the bottom, or maybe right here we could add one. maybe like right here. So if you want to kind of have that contrast of having some light and dark, you can come back and add in some of those wherever you think it looks beautiful. And then I'm going to try and show you on one of your flowers. This one looks kind of dry, so I'm going to blow on it. If you're blowing on yours, be really gentle, because wherever there's water, you can make it kind of spray. So blow very gently if you're doing this. But I'm going to blow so I can try and put a pink dot so you can see that. All right. And get your paintbrush really dry. Dip into the dark pink, and then you just add a little dark pink sea in the middle. And doesn't that just look nice? It just adds a fun little pop. I can't add it to these ones because it'll smear, but I'll show you I can add it on these ones. See, and it just sort of completes the flower and makes it look a little bit more finished. So then the rest is up to you. If you want to add any other details or lines to your flowers, you can do that. If you want to sign your name so we know it's yours, you can do that too. But I bet your flowers look gorgeous. Thank you for following along, ladies. Just listen to the leaders if you're at camp for cleanup. If you're at home, make sure you clean up as well. But thank you so much for following along. I hope you love how your flowers turned out. Have a good day.